episode 3 of Photography Exposed. I'm teaching digital imaging at Washington College this semester, and in class today, as part of a demonstration for something that the students are doing in an assignment, I was showing the process of taking images, creating panoramics from them, and basically building these little mini planets from them. And I kind of did a couple quick examples in class today. And I thought this might be a neat topic to bring up and make a podcast for Photography Exposed. So I've got an example that I'm going to do today. Here's actually a mini planet that I made from a 360-degree panoramic shot from the Martha Washington Square on campus, which has a few of the buildings surrounding it here. And so I want to make a variation of this where I've taken these photos and then I've taken the raw images and I've actually processed them as HDR images in Photomatic. So I'm going to create a new version based on that and see how that turns out. But before I get into that, I just want to quickly show what exactly is happening and why these images turn out the way they do. So to demonstrate that, I just created this really quick rough grid here, and I did it with a gradient where it's black up at the top and red at the bottom, just to kind of show what's going to be happening with the images when we go ahead and process them. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this into Photoshop and just really quickly show what happens when you basically go to distort and polar coordinates and then use the rectangular to polar coordinate conversion. And as you can see, we've got this radial pattern here, and in the center it's black, and all around the edges it's red. And so what's happening, if I just hit undo, you can see that the top of the image, this whole top line, this whole edge is now condensed into this one point basically, and this whole bottom edge, which you can see is the red here, is now the entire outside of the image. So it's converting it from one set of coordinates to the other. And so if you think about the mini planets, they're basically little spheres that are living in the center of the image. And so if we wanted to make the spheres based around this black area in the photo, that black area would have to be the top of the image. So and then again the opposite, the outside sky around this little mini globe that we're making, that would need to be the bottom of the image. So what I did to start was I took 17 photos and a 360-degree, just kind of handheld these shots, brought them into Photomatics, processed them, and then saved them all as individual JPEGs. I've also reduced the size of them so that way it'll be a little bit quicker to do the demonstration with. And so I'm just going to go ahead and go to Automate and use Photo Merge. And so in here I'm just going to go ahead and hit Auto for the layout. It's going to go ahead and try to automatically warp them, align them, resize them as needed to make them fit. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and take the vignetting removal setting here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and browse for the folder where they're at, and it's going to be actually a different folder. I'm going to go ahead and use the one where I've gone and reduced the size of the file so that way it does go quicker for the demo here. 17 21 megapixel images, just for a reference, with this MacBook Pro with 8 gigs of RAM, took about 15 minutes to create the panoramic. So for sake of doing this video, I figured it would probably do exactly what I needed to do as far as demonstration purposes and make things a whole lot quicker. So it's already going quite a bit faster, and as you can see, it's 12:15 now. I'll go ahead and speed this section up and cut to the chase, and I'll show you what's being formed here. Okay, now that the panorama has finished building, you can see what it did is it created a bunch of layers. Each one has a layer mask, and you can see where it's just kind of warping and blending the images together to make this rough panoramic. And you can see that I actually did slightly more than 360 degrees. I've got this building repeating here, and so this is good because this will let me have a nice clear breaking point to where I divide on the sides and hopefully get a nice continuous 360-degree panoramic, which will translate well into this little mini planet. So first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and merge these layers. And now I need to basically crop this down into a rectangular selection. But to do that, I'm going to want to be able to, again, choose a point where I'm going to divide on some place to make a nice clean break. So I need to look for some nice hard edge to work with. So what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and maybe grab this corner of the building over here. So let me just kind of go in a little closer, and you can get a better look at what we've got here. And maybe like this corner of the building will be a good edge to work off of. So what I'll do is go ahead and grab our crop tool, And I'm just going to kind of roughly just quickly throw this out here. And again, so the idea is I want to have it line up on this edge of the building and the same place over here. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to try to make sure that I don't include any areas where I get that the background not being in the shot. I want to make sure it's all the pieces that are there that I need to build this. So this is not an exact science to get this out. This to work right. I've kind of found that about a 1/3 on the bottom, 2/3 on the top seems to work pretty well, but it depends on what you're doing and how it all looks. So before I go in and adjust those sides, one thing I do want to check is that I've got a nice horizontal horizon here. It could be slightly askew, and I want to make sure that that's not going to be the case. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and zoom in. I just moved my crop, the bottom of my crop line up to just barely down from the top of this step on this side, and if I'm straight, looks like I'm just barely down from the top of the step on this side. So if that wasn't straight, I would grab on these corners here and just go ahead and just pull that crop to be something that's kind of askew like this. But in this case, I'll just go ahead and put it back to where it was. So I don't want to leave it there. I want to actually include the brick, but I'm just using that as some point that's easy to see to make sure my horizon is nice and level. So I'll go ahead and pull this down. And I don't want to include any of the bottom area here where there is no detail. Same thing, if I go ahead and include more of this top area, I don't want to get into where there's no detail up in the top here. Now I need to basically align the right and the left side. So I'm using the side of this building. It's actually the Performing Arts building on campus here. And I'm just going to keep zooming in a little bit more. We're actually at 100% now. I'm just going to go a little bit closer. And again, I'm going to go in now and I'll be able to align this. So what I'm going to do is just bring it in to that line is just touching the edge of that metal frame. And then I'll go into the other side of the image, and the same thing, I'm going to pull it out of the way just so that way it's nice and clear, and then I'm going to pull this line till it's just touching the edge of that metal frame, and now that should do the trick. So if I zoom out here, that's what it's going to be once I hit the return key here. You can see there I've got my panoramic here. So if you're starting with just a panoramic image that you shot of some area that is not a 360-degree panoramic, this is where you're going to be basically picking up. This is where you're going to be starting with your image. It doesn't have to be a continuous 360-degree panoramic. It just makes it easier because you have less work to do later in cleaning up where the seam is, where these two images are going to meet. But we will have to do a little bit of cleaning probably on this anyway. But in any case, so now that we've got this, the next step is we need to make this into a square image. So I'll go up to Image and Image Size, and so we can see that right now the width and the height are shown here. Typically you'll have the constraint proportions box checked as well. Make sure you uncheck that, and in this case I'm just going to extrapolate this up to 4400, and now it's going to basically make this a tall square image. We'll take this, and if you recall when we were doing the demonstration with that grid, the top of the image is what was the center of the little planet, the little center of the sphere, and the bottom is what was becoming the perimeter. So we actually need to flip this upside down, so that way the sky is the perimeter and the brick is the center. So if we go into Image, rotate 180 degrees, and then we can go ahead and go into Filter, and again go to Distort, Polar Coordinates. Make sure you choose the first one, Rectangular to Polar. And there's our planet. And you can see again it's taking those edges and just kind of blowing them out a little bit here in it. So this the corners of this image that's creating are not really something you're going to want to keep. You might want to get rid of those, but it kind of gives it a kind of like an atmospheric look around it. And in this case, if you zoom in, you can see that there's actually a pretty interesting detail in the bricks where this pattern all comes together. But you get the idea for how this ends up looking kind of like a planet type look. So there's a seam that goes right up across from the dead center straight up, and in fact if you zoom in you can see it's not perfect. And if I just kind of slide up here on the steps, you can see it doesn't line up perfectly. Here it doesn't line up perfectly on the building. And as we go up, you can see the seam is not perfect. So it actually would make more sense to line up the seam in something that is not going to show imperfection. Maybe if I had done it over here in this tree, for example, that might be a better place to do it, because the tree does not need to show uniformity. It can be retouched easily, and it's not like this grid of glass where it's going to easily show where we don't have it matching up correctly. But you can see how that would work. And again, if I undo here, you can see that the the center of the image is now the bottom. And what is at the edges here is what ends up being basically the very top. If anybody has any questions about this, feel free to email photographyexposed@gmail.com, and if you've also got ideas for an upcoming episode, something you'd like to see us try to do, feel free to send your comments and your questions there as well. And thanks for watching, and we'll hopefully see you back here soon for another episode.